I'm very excited to welcome our keynote speaker. She can't be here in person, unfortunately, today, but we're dialing her in online on the screen, so you'll be able to watch her keynote in a second. I'm very excited to welcome Fatou Jeng. She is a climate advisor to the United Nations Secretary General, and she's also the founder of Clean Earth Gambia, which is a non-profit organization creating awareness around climate change, educating school children and running projects around climate change. I'm very excited to hand over to Fatou and let us introduce this session. All right, see you soon.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon. Rather unfortunate that I can't make it to the session today, speaking on a very important and crucial topic. Obviously, these are the things that comes with having a global South passport, passport constraint, visa constraints and all. But I'm really glad to join you virtually in this session, navigating through the times of polycrisis. As mentioned by the moderator, my name is Fatou Jeng. I am from the Gambia, one of the climate advisors to the UN Secretary General, and also founded Clean Earth Gambia, which is one of the biggest youth-led environmental organizations working on the intersection of gender, climate change awareness, among others. To begin with, I think the term polycrisis obviously speaks for itself because in our present generation or right now, we're seeing intersecting on multiple crises that are actually happening around the world, which are affecting the lives and livelihoods of people, but most especially the climate crisis, which over the years we have been seeing the devastating impacts it have been able to have on the lives of people, especially people from the global south. I am from the Gambia, as mentioned by the moderator, and it's a country, tiny country with just less than 3 million people. But we are one of the countries that is experiencing the major impacts of climate change as a result, obviously, of the increase in global climate threats that are caused by the major polluters. And as a country, the Gambia, we are very vulnerable and at the risk of rising sea level. And the scientists have mentioned that if our sea level in the Gambia rises for 1 meter, the city will be inundated. And also, looking at how our country is mainly dependent on agriculture as our main source of sustenance, especially as a country where over 70% of our rural population depend on agriculture, include father who's a farmer. And over the years, we have been seeing how the polycrisis or intersecting global crisis, ranging from biodiversity loss, from flooding, from economic loss, from social inequality, among others, have been really affecting our lives and our livelihoods as people. And just to take you or give you a breakdown of how this is really significant, or how this is really majorly impacting people and their lives. For instance, in our side of Africa, that is the Sahel, we have been experiencing an increase in conflict, especially conflicts between farmers and herders as they actually scramble or fight for the inadequate resources that we have, looking at how this side of our world is actually or has been experiencing drought as a result of the climate crisis, which is also leading to other humanitarian problems that is war and conflicts in these areas, as well as poverty. We also go and look at other sides of Africa, like Sierra Leone, among others. We have been seeing how there have been an increase in flooding affecting and leading to the death of so many. Even in the Gambia of recent, that is the last climate season, the last rainy season, over hundreds of families were displaced and they lost their lives and their livelihoods. And this is something that is similar across other parts of Africa. And also, if you look at other parts of the global south, like Pakistan, among others, we have been seeing how there has been an increase in flooding, which has been affecting the main source of income and livelihoods of people. So when we talk about navigating the poly crisis, it is about understanding how the different challenges that we're facing around the world intersect with each other, and how it is also affecting the lives of people and their main source of income and just their livelihoods in general. I mean, the moderator has actually talked about the issue of the humanitarian crisis that are happening. We now look at the war and the genocide that is happening in Gaza. We look at uh, in Congo and Sudan, how children and young people are actually abused. We look at other parts of the world where we're seeing gender inequality. We're seeing other several challenges that continue to affect our lives and our livelihoods. So, what do we need to do? As not only activists, as not only individuals that are working against the global crisis that we continue to face. First, I think it is really important that we continue to strengthen global cooperation and knowledge sharing. Conferences and events like Change Now are avenues that are very crucial for us to ensure that there is knowledge sharing where people from the global south, where indigenous communities, where the academia, where the activists, and all other stakeholders converge, come together to discuss about the polycrisis, the different challenges that we're facing on a daily basis, and the important and significant role that every stakeholder has in making sure that we address these problems that we are facing. Obviously, the second thing, financing, but most especially the angle of climate financing, because now we are seeing how climate change has also caused other humanitarian and social issues. We're seeing biodiversity loss, we're seeing hunger, we're seeing all the other challenges that come with the climate crisis. So we need to make sure that we invest more in climate financing. And when I talk about climate finance, we need to make sure that polluting nations that are actually causing the major damages in continents and places that are affected by the climate crisis invest more on climate financing, especially on the loss and damage. If some of you have been following the UNFCCC process, you've seen that during the last COP, that was the COP28, we talked about the loss and damage fund. And in the previous COPs, we've talked about the issue of climate financing for adaptation and loss and damage. But these haven't really actually progressed much as we needed. So that is why in the time of navigating the poly crisis, we need to make sure we invest more in climate financing. I mean, serious climate financing, where countries can be able to build their adaptation capacities. We've seen how countries like Kiribati cannot be able to actually support themselves in the face of climate crisis. Countries like Fiji, because these are countries that are adversely affected by rising sea level, and some of the citizens are actually forced to actually migrate because they are losing their lands. So when we talk about climate financing, we're making sure that there is enough support to make sure that countries that are vulnerable to the climate crisis, as well as other challenges that come with the climate crisis, are supported. Obviously, making sure that our solutions in addressing the poly crisis is as inclusive as possible, making sure that we bring the right people at the right place to make sure that we find a common ground and common solution. For instance, we continue to see how in some platforms indigenous communities are tokenized, young people are tokenized, and this is what we need to do away with. We need to make sure that we have inclusive solutions where the local knowledges, the local knowledge of indigenous communities, the local knowledge of traditional people are incorporated in the solutions that we are going to bring forward in addressing the challenges that we face. Obviously, and most importantly, we need to make sure that we invest more in research, investing more in research, in making sure that we are finding more solutions and addressing the problems that we face. That's why obviously it's really important that the next panel that we're having, we have someone focused in research, and I really love to hear his perspective in making sure that there is more investment and there is more focus on research and climate related issues. Finally, to just wrap it up, I'll obviously share my call for action, because in as much as we sit in platforms, we talk about the challenges that we are facing, we talk about the problems that we continue to face on a daily basis as a result of climate change, as well as other intersecting challenges. We need to make sure that obviously there is accountability and there is transparency in the processes. We don't only sit in these platforms and talk about the challenge we face, but we make sure that when we're leaving these platforms, we are bringing in innovative solutions that are going to solve the problems that are that communities and people in the most marginalized and vulnerable places are actually facing. So these solutions need to make sure that the is considering and making sure that it is including these problems. So first of all, on my issue of calling to action, obviously, we need to make sure that we take urgent actions and making sure that we bring all stakeholders involved. There has been so much talks, there has been so much backs and forth in the climate space, in the environment space, in the humanitarian space, but I haven't seen enough action that needs to be taken. So we need to make sure that in making sure there's transparency and accountability, we need to make sure that these actions are taken urgently and making sure that we hold our leaders accountable for the promises that we are making in not only the international stage, but also at the national stage, making sure that these promises that are made and pledges that are made are actually committed to and implemented at our local level where it matters the most, because it is in our local levels where people are affected. So when we make sure we take urgent actions, we need to make sure that it is considering the needs, the aspirations, and the desires of the communities that are most vulnerable and most affected. And obviously, partnership, collaboration, as I've mentioned, is very crucial in moving forward, because as I always say in my panels or in my conversations, that the government can't do it alone, young people can't do it alone, academia can't do it alone. So we need different stakeholders involved, where we are bringing or we are utilizing our existing skills and knowledge to make sure we are synergizing effort to address the challenges that we continue to face on a daily basis. So making sure that there is effective partnership between different stakeholders will help us in moving forward or navigating the polycrisis, and obviously accelerating transition to a just society. And when I talk about just society, I'm talking about environmental justice, climate justice, social justice, democracy, and the rule of law. We cannot talk about addressing only the climate crisis and leaving all the challenges that we are facing, because all these things actually more or less affect each other. So if we do not solve the social justice problems that we are facing, it will be difficult to solve the climate problems that we are facing. So making sure that in the approaches or the ways that we are using to address the problems, we need to make sure that we are using a social justice angle, a social justice lens, where we are making sure that we are addressing all the problems. For instance, in places like the Gambia and all of that, we are seeing poverty, we are seeing the violation of the fundamental human rights of women, among others, and this is similar to other parts of our globe and all of that. So we need to make sure that when we are addressing the problems, we don't only look at one issue but solve everything. We cannot talk about social justice without talking about the conflicts that are happening in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan, among others. So we need to make sure that, and in our transition to a just society, we are making sure that it is, ensuring that it is inclusive, and it is making sure that it is addressing all the other societal issues that we're having. And finally, we need to make sure that we invest more in research. We need to make sure we invest more in nature-based solutions and climate financing, among others. So to wrap it up, I just really want to appreciate and thank the organizers for having me on board to talk about navigating through the times of polycrisis. This is something that I think we need to have more conversations on, because different issues are happening at the same time. And as I've mentioned, we need to make sure that we're taking a holistic approach in ensuring that we address the problems that we are facing. And I'm actually looking forward to the conversations that will be happening later on with the panel, especially in ensuring that we hear more from the diverse voices of people that are on the ground, that are taking innovative actions, that are taking innovative solutions, and addressing the climate problems as well as other environmental related problems that we continue to see on a daily basis. And also to make sure that there are more platforms where young people from the global south continue to share their work, to share the solutions that they are using or that they're making in their countries to support and build the resilience of communities in adapting to the climate crisis as well as other challenges. And also obviously making sure that there is more global commitment, there is more global action in ensuring that there is collective effort in advancing and pushing for not only climate justice, not only environmental justice, but social justice. Thank you so much.
Fatou, thank you for the keynote.